Welcome to the Who I Am podcast with Mandalyn, Freeland, Marcely Woofenden, and special guest. We are dedicated to sharing women's stories from all walks of life. We will be diving into experiences, challenges, and triumphs. If you are a woman, then this podcast is for you, and we are so glad that you found us.
Hey! This is so fun.
Right. Welcome, guys. This is so fun. You guys, we're launching our podcast and we are so excited.
Yes.
We're just going to be interviewing all different women, sharing stories, coming from all different places in life, right? In hopes to bring you guys some insight, maybe some directions, maybe learning from them, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I saw a show a few years ago that I just loved. It was a guy that went around the country interviewing just random strangers, and he would ask what their story was. And I just thought it was really cool. I think it was like storytellers or something. And I thought that would be such a fun job because I love to hear everyone's stories. So what a great opportunity that we have, Marcy, to be able to do that with so many women. And I mean, that's what I love is everybody's so different, right? And I think that it can be uplifting, inspiring to hear from other people and to learn from them.
Yes, for sure. So if you guys want to be presented, share your story on our podcast, reach out because we may not know you yet, but we would love to get to know you.
That's right.
So for our first couple of podcasts, we're going to jump a little bit into us so you guys can kind of see, a sneak peek of a little part of our lives or our journeys. So for this first podcast, I am so excited and privileged to get the opportunity to chat with Mandalyn and take a little deep dive into her journey and life. So Mandalyn, you named this podcast Don't Waste Time Being Early. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, sure. All right, so here's my philosophy. My family knows me well. We are the last ones to show up everywhere. And I have felt some shame about that over the years and just kind of felt guilty, like, why am I always late? And then I realized this just probably a few years ago. I am a multitasker. I like to get things checked off my list. And I also have ADD, which this is funny. I remember sitting in a meeting with one of my employees and she said, Mandalyn, you have ADD. And I remember being like, what? No, I don't. And just thinking like, that's a terrible thing. Like, how dare you label me with that? And she's like, really, like, think about it. Like, you get super distracted easy, like squirrel, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Like, I probably do. And now I realized, heck yeah, I do. In order to do all the things that I do, I have to have a little bit of ADD in me. So not offended anymore. It's a thing. But because of that, I am like, there's no way I'm going to waste time arriving early somewhere and just sitting and being ready. I have siblings that are like 30 minutes early, and I think that's pretty cool. But for me, I could do a lot in those 30 minutes, right? So I'm always like cramming something else in, and usually it makes me like 5 minutes late. So that's where that comes from.
I love it.
Yeah.
I do know that about you. That's so great. Tell me what challenges you've went through in your life.
Oh man. Okay. So I mean, here's the thing too. I've learned that strengths can be a strength and a weakness sometimes. They can be good and bad. And so that whole ADD, doing lots of things, checking things off the list and being late. Being late is definitely one of those things. Also, I really want to be more reliable for people. I want to be that person that you can count on. And I think I can definitely improve there. So that's a constant challenge. Another thing is my family is always kind of complaining that I am constantly on my phone. Like, this is totally my lifeline, my work tool. I don't spend a ton of time on social media, but I'm always calling, texting, emailing, um, somebody at work, somebody at church, somebody, right? And so it's really hard for me to like have those boundaries where I'm like, okay, I need to totally be present with this person, whether I'm in a work meeting or with my family. I feel like I constantly have to like respond to people and help people and do things right away. Um, versus like just being patient and being present. And so that's something that I'm really challenging myself this year to kind of get better at. And I'm sure it will be an ongoing challenge for me as well. But yeah, I mean, I think those are probably my biggest challenges. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's something else that I really struggle with. I wrote some things down last night, just kind of not exactly sure where this would go, but maybe to just kind of remind myself. Yeah, I think just prioritizing, right? Like just kind of being able to prioritize. Even like I have a whole list every single day of things that I need to do. And sometimes at the end of the night, I look at my list and it's still all unchecked because I added 50 other things that I checked off that day versus getting to the things I really probably should have gotten to. And so prioritizing is probably something else. But yeah.
I love that. I don't think you're alone in those challenges. I think there are a lot of us women that relate to those. So that's awesome. Okay, next I want to go into some of your accomplishments, and I personally know that one of your recent ones has been a cabin, and I've been fortunate enough to take part of that. But tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah. Let me tell you about this. So this is a big deal. This is something that I've wanted for years. My husband's grandma, Billy's grandma, had a cabin that we went to when we were dating, and then when we got married. And I took you guys, all my Noctil family, there several times, and so many amazing memories built. And this was in Utah. It was just 2 hours away from our home. Just perfect location to get up there, get away. Grandma's cabin didn't really have phone service. And so that was kind of a nice disconnect, right? Just peaceful getaway. So that actually left the family when grandma passed away. It was sold. And so we didn't have the opportunity to go there anymore. And I have a business coach for my beauty school, and he asked me one time, why do you do what you do? Why do you work your butt off? And for what? You know, because you could choose to stay at home. Like my husband's always been our bread and butter, and I don't have to work for money. And so he always says I have expensive hobbies. Um, but yeah, so I just said, you know what? I really want a family cabin. And I told my husband, and he said, no, that's a waste of time and money, like, or not time. It's a waste of money because he would prefer us to be able to not be tied down to one location and didn't think we would utilize it enough. And so he's like, let's just, go somewhere different all the time and not be tied down. And I just kept thinking, if it was like Grandma Dawn's, we would totally use it. We have so many memories there. And then it's like our home. Like I can fill it with my stuff and then it feels more like ours. And so one night we were sitting in our living room and my husband brought it up to my kids. He says, Mom thinks we should get a cabin. And he's like, what do you guys think? I don't think we would use it enough. And of course, my kids were like, what? Yeah, that'd be so cool, especially if it was like Grandma Dawn's. And so we had this great conversation. It sounded like everybody, agreed that like Grandma Dawn's cabin was awesome and we would totally utilize something like that in our family. So everyone went to bed that night. I get on my phone, yeah, my work tool, right? And I'm scrolling through KSL, what like one of my favorite apps, and looking for lots or cabins for sale. No kidding. That night, I came across a lot that was just a few lots down from Grandma Dawn's cabin in the same development. Could not believe it. Like, I never see anything for sale in there. And that night, and it was just posted like a day or two before I found it. So, of course, I wake Billy up and I'm like, "You will never believe this." And he's like, "Are you kidding me? The one place I can't say no to?" And I'm like, "Yep." So, we ended up purchasing that lot. Um, and we've been trying to build on that lot, but it's a really steep lot, and we haven't been able to get a permit from the county. And but let me back up. Did I really think I would get one? I wanted one really bad, right? I really wanted a cabin, but then I kept telling myself, like, "Oh, I can put this on my vision board and think about it, but like it probably won't happen for a very long time." So what I did was I put it on my vision board. I made my password to everything cabin 2024. That was my password for everything, because then I would hear it, I would say it, I would see it over and over. And it's amazing what our mind can do, what that positive conscious thinking can do for us. Because honestly, like, that was a big deal. In fact, my kids were all aware of that password, and they asked me questions like, "So we're getting a cabin?" And I'm like, "Well," but I did 2024 because I set this back in 2022. And I was like, "I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say within 2 years, I'm going to get a cabin." And guess what happened? We bought that lot in 2023. And then we weren't able to build. We've been trying still and unable to get a permit. Last winter, my husband came across a cabin in the development, just a few lots down from our lot and Grandma Dawn's cabin, and it was a cabin for sale. And it's just this tiny A-frame, cozy cabin, like 900 square feet. And we were like, should we buy this? Because that way, my husband was starting to stress out and get angry, and he was in love with the idea of it even more than I was. So it's so fun to see like him change from like all of a sudden like no cabin to like this is going to be amazing and we're going to retire here. And so now he's in love with it. He's almost getting angry because he can't start building and get a permit. And I'm like, "Hey, this is not what it's supposed to be." So when we came across this cabin, it was just so exciting to be like, "Hey, we can walk right into this. We can have this while we're worrying about building the other one and not stress so much," right? Well, we bought this cabin in May of last year. We've had it for a year. It is our favorite. We actually love the lot even more. So we are going to stay in this cabin and just expand and add on to that. And then our other cabin lot is down on the water. And so we just are building a little shed right now and a swing that goes over the water, and made the best use of that. So really, really awesome. But I just want to tell you guys, as a huge accomplishment in my life, something that I really, really wanted. And it's one of those things that I can stand here and say, I remember the days I used to pray for what I now have. Like, that's one of my favorite quotes. And I can say that over and over and over in my life. And I want you to know how powerful our minds are, and the way of conscious thinking, and just knowing that, like, I made that happen over time because, I worked so hard at it, and I thought about it, and I got my family on board, and that happened, right? Like, I had to pray for that. Like, I didn't think my husband would get on board. I was really worried about that because it's a lot of money, and he is like a frugal person and doesn't want to have any debt. So anyways, long story short, that's one of my huge accomplishments, I feel like, in my life, is having that cabin. And we've made some amazing, memorable times. We love to bring other family members up there and enjoy it together, and so it's been a really good thing in our life. Um, yeah, and I'm glad you got to come and enjoy it with your boys last summer. That was fun, or fall, I guess.
Yes. Yes, it was the fall, and it is so beautiful. It's beautiful up there. They've done a great job with it, so I love that I got to experience that.
Thank you.
Um, all right, tell me, why don't you share with us maybe some lessons that you've learned?
Okay. One would be trust in God. Number one, right? Like, that is something that's huge for me. Is I'm full of faith and hope. And so, have I always felt that way? Not necessarily. Just learning things. I'll tell you, I opened my beauty school when I was 22 years old. It's kind of crazy to think about now. But I was totally naive, opened my school thinking, oh, you own a business, you're going to be rich, and you're going to do whatever you want with your time. Now, Billy and I got married young. It was a month before I turned 20 that I got married, and he was already 20. And he was a contractor. His dad was a contractor. So that was just kind of a natural thing. He was doing his own thing. And I mentioned, like, I love aesthetics. There weren't any schools in Utah for that. And I had learned that there were going to be laws changed and require schooling and licensing for aesthetics. So I decided, hey, I should do that. My mom and Billy were totally supportive and on board. My dad is a worrywart. So he was like, what do you think you're doing? You don't have enough money for that. I mean, my family never had a lot of money ever growing up. And so this was something that was kind of crazy. And I did hear, oh, it's so easy to get small business loans, especially for women. No, it was not. So that's a myth. I don't know if that's changed in the last 23 years, but that was not the case for me. But I will say that throughout the years, there were times where I wanted to give up so bad, and it was really, really hard. And I would feel like a guilty mom, not being a good enough mom, or just stressed out and scared to death. And I always had answers from God that I was supposed to stay where I am and keep doing it. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to have that faith and for Him to guide me, because I truly love who I am today and feel that a huge part of who I am today is because of my school and that business and the opportunity to meet and get to know and help so many women of all ages and all walks of life. And God knows what He's doing. I've had some crazy experiences with that business and in life that we'll probably talk about in the future, but He knows what He's doing, and I've learned to just trust Him, and I'm grateful for that. Number two, relationships are probably the most important thing to me in this life. And I think that's valid, and it should be something that everybody feels is important, because it really is all about who you know. And for me, how I can impact, others. And I have gotten lots of great things and great opportunities in this life because of the people that I've met, and I feel uplifted often because of good relationships. I love my family. I have my parents have been married for a long time, over 50 years, and my siblings, there's 8 of us kids. So we're in a big family, and we have good relationships where we see each other really often, and are comfortable talking to each other, and there's always someone there if I need, to feel uplifted, or I need help and support. And I always feel loved. And then my husband's family as well. And, he has a big family, and to feel those connections. But then I've realized something over the years, that I am blessed with the opportunity to work with so many women. And I realized this past year just how lucky I am, and that not everyone does have that opportunity. And so I just feel like I always have people there. And that's really one of the reasons that I wanted to start this women's community with you, Marcy, is because I feel blessed to know so many amazing people in my life that can share and uplift. And I know a lot of women that struggle. And so I just feel like, hey, if I have that ability to facilitate connections and help, I'm going to do that. And so I'm grateful that you felt inspired to call me one day and say, hey, let's do this. And I just am like so, so grateful for that. Probably one other lesson that I would share is learning to love others the way that they want to be loved, right? We talk about like love languages. There's like 5 love languages. Some people say there's more, like 7 or even more. I'm going to share just a little a little experience that I have had over the years. I have always loved Christmas. My parents instilled that in me, and I love Christmas. When I was young, I loved to receive gifts, and I still love to receive gifts. To me, that shows me that you're thinking about me. And you know me well enough to know what I appreciate. But as I've grown older, I've learned that I love to give gifts. So I love Christmas even more now. And I shop year round for Christmas for my loved ones. And I seriously, my closet is full right now of already like Christmas gifts and birthday gifts and all the things. I always have something on hand because I love to get for other people. And I would buy my husband really nice gifts for his birthday, for Christmas. I bought him a freaking 63 T-Bird and had it restored for him. And I was so excited for that Christmas morning because he had an old car, like a Pontiac Grand Prix in high school, and it's gone. And so he wanted another old car. Well, I thought I'm going to pick old car that I like, that I think is pretty. So I got a 63 T-Bird, had it restored. It's beautiful. Christmas morning, we go outside on the porch, and he's like, "How much did that cost?" And I was like, "What? Like, that's your reaction?" That's happened a couple of times with some big things. And so it would bug me. I would be so frustrated. Like, why the heck are you such a brat? Like, you should be so grateful. Well, in his mind, he's like, I don't need this. He's a very simple man. He doesn't need a lot of money spent. And it bugs him because he'd rather have the money to pay off debt and not have any debt. And so I bought him a mule one time, which I know he wanted a mule. He talked about it all the time. Even that was hard for him to swallow. Like, okay, I got a mule. This is great. And then he appreciated it more later. But anyways, I've learned that my love language is gift giving. His is not. His is physical touch and quality time. He would much rather sit on the couch together watching a movie, tickling each other's feet the whole night. And you know what? That was hard for me. It was hard for me to let go of what I wanted for him and what I wanted to do. But I've learned that it's a lot cheaper and a lot simpler to give him what he needs and what he wants. And our relationship has just blossomed even more. You know, we've been married 25 years, and I love that we continue to learn things about each other and grow together. But that's something that I would definitely say, like, if you haven't discovered your love language, or your kids as well, figure out, let them take that test and figure out what their love language is, because they are all different. And so how fun to like get to know them and meet them at their level, at their language, right? Speak their language.
I love that reminder because yes, when we know each other's love language, life is so much easier.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right. Well, as we wrap up today's call with you, do you have any other advice that you want to leave?
Mm, I would say, um, hmm, let's see. I should be so much more prepared for this. I would say celebrate all your wins, big and small. It's easy to forget. It's easy to forget to look back and see where we started, and see where our journey has taken us. So like gratitude for sure. Like if you don't have a gratitude journal, that's something to do, or at least like, be mindful of that every day. What you're blessed with, and what what wins you've had, and celebrate those. I think too, like, not comparing yourself. Just, I see my teenage daughter Millie doing that. She's just beautiful and talented, but she's always looking at everybody else's strengths and beating up on herself because she doesn't have those same strengths. So I think rather than like comparing our strengths, our weaknesses to someone else's strengths, let's compare our strengths to strengths. Let's not even compare, right? Like I've learned how to just show up and be okay. I was on one of our coaching calls for the Breakthrough Tribe a couple weeks ago. I had to rush inside, didn't even have time to brush my hair after my massage. Massage hair is crazy. It's oily, it's crazy. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. My people love me and they're not going to judge me, right? We're just here for like a positive thing. So that's something that I've learned in my life, is just to be who you are. Really just embrace the things you cannot change. And if you want to change something that you can, then do it. Don't complain about it. Right. So I feel like I'm in a really good spot in my life where I'm really happy. And it's because I've kind of realized those things. So those would be my pieces of advice.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much, Mandolin, for letting us have a sneak peek into what's going on in your life.
Let me share one last thing. I grew up
Okay.
Mandy. My name is Mandalyn. I always went by Mandy growing up. That just happened naturally. I wanted to go by Mandolyn when I was like in high school. I was like, that's so pretty. But you can't like tell everybody you grow up with at the same schools and church and everything, oh, hey, all of a sudden call me Mandy or call me Mandolyn, right? And so it's funny because when I moved here, I'm like, oh, I'm the new girl. I can go by Mandolyn. Well, I thought I could, but I couldn't because my family was everywhere with me and still called me Mandy. So that's what people picked up on at church, at school. And so when I opened my beauty school, my husband was like, why don't you name it Mandolyn Academy? Like, you have a pretty name. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do that. So I do have a school named after me, and he even surprised me last year and named a street after me. So we live on Mandolyn Way, which is almost embarrassing, but pretty cool. But it's funny because people that know me from my school, Mandolyn Academy, call me Mandolyn, but people at home and church and everywhere call me Mandy. So I know it's probably a little weird for you to call me Mandy, or sorry, Mandolyn, because you have always called me Mandy. But I just wanted to point that out because everyone asked me, so what's the deal? What do you prefer? I don't care. I don't care.
Yes.
It's 50-50. I really don't care. But it kind of tells me how I know you, depending on what you call me.
Yeah, it is because I know both ways, right? Mandy, growing up as my sister, but then we've done a lot of business together. Where in school and business things, it's Mandolin. So to me, it's kind of like both. Where I do think the rest of our family is like it's like Mandy, like who's Mandolin?
Totally.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing, and thanks
Yeah,
again for letting us dive into your life.
for sure. Yep.
Thank you for joining us. If you feel in your heart to be a part of our community for women, check us out at thebreakthroughtribe.com.